The take-up rate already is remarkable. 370,000 businesses had signed up as of 8 a.m. today. Just how many jobs do you expect this wage subsidy program will save over the coming months?
Well, the government reckons there'll be 6 million jobs that'll be positively supported as a result of these measures. And it just goes to the heart of what we know about the Australian economy. Most Australians who are in a job are working for a business. So if you want to save jobs, you've got to save businesses.
There is a push for the scheme to be broadened, though, to include casuals, for example, who have been working for a company for less than 12 months. Is that something you would support? Does the package need to be broader?
Look, the package had to draw a line somewhere. The government has cast the net far, far wider than most people, including the Australian Chamber, thought it would. It's investing $130 billion of taxpayers' money over 6 months. That's 11% of our whole country's GDP. Obviously, at the margins, there's going to be people, there's going to be businesses who miss out. I understand that. Important to remember that the government had already announced over the last few weeks a number of other measures, generous measures, to support people who won't necessarily be able to take advantage of this measure, although many will, but there is other support available, including for businesses and including for people who have been in casual employment.
How worried are you, James, about some businesses trying to exploit the system, to rort the package somehow? Are there enough checks and balances in place to ensure that only the businesses who are sincere about trying to keep their workers actually access it?
Well, I can assure you that anything that's been designed by the Federal Treasury with input from the tax office is going to be designed to prevent fraud wherever it can. But I can also assure you that every businessman and woman that I speak to across our network across the country, they want to stay in business and they want to keep the people who work for them in a job. This is not a question of are people going to fiddle the books or whatever. This is a question of survival, not just of business people, but for the many, many millions that they employ. And it's really important that businesses continue to register for this package if they can. Let's also remember that to be eligible, you've got to be losing at least 30% of your revenue. Now, that's the equivalent of falling off a cliff for most businesses, large or small. So people aren't going to be accessing this unless they're truly in a desperate situation. And if they don't get past that threshold, there are other forms of assistance available, and it means that your business is actually not as badly off as a lot of other businesses who do qualify.
I know you've been working hard along with the ACTU to try and change the award system. Where are you up to on that? What changes can we expect to see on that front?
Look, in principle, the ACTU and the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry and also the Australian Industry Group, we've been working side by side to bring in basically ways to reduce costs to businesses and increase flexibility. Now, there's a lot of detail involved because you and I both know that the Australian workplace relations system is one of the most complicated and clunky in the entire developed world. But we're trying our hardest with the unions and other employer groups to find ways of making awards work more flexibly and better to save businesses and save jobs. And look, the detail, well, the devil's always in the detail, but there will be more to come on that as we continue our negotiations. But they're going well.
James, what is the Chamber's view on further forceful closures of businesses? We are seeing reports from some sectors suggesting that it would actually be helpful for a lot of businesses around the country if they were forced to shut down, because it takes the pressure off in terms of having to remain open and have people, working behind counters and that sort of thing in the meantime. Would you like to see further shutdowns regulated?
I understand that some businesses would actually find it easier to be forced to shut down than not. And again, that's something to do with our very complicated and punitive workplace relations laws. But the overwhelming majority of businesses that I speak to, they want to keep their doors open, they want to keep the business going. And even if there's not very much for their workers to do, they can put them onto training, they can do stock takes, they can start planning and reorganising for the very different world of business that I think is going to emerge when we come out the other side of this crisis. And the government subsidies announced a day or two ago will surely help them to be able to do that.